Hi, this is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the vintage Esterbooks that I will have at my table at the 2025 St. Louis Pen Show. Now, my broken hand has prevented me from restoring as many pens as I had intended. I have many of these little Esterbooks, and I have more models than this. Right here, I've got the regular J size, and I've got the SJ, or the shorter J size. And these are all fully restored. That means I cleaned them up for one, because usually when I get these, they are caked up with decades old ink, and so I have to clean up the inside of the cap, clean up the nibs, and I have to polish the bodies. Usually the bodies are, pretty grungy because these pens have been in a drawer someplace for decades. And I remove the old sack and install a new one. Sometimes I have to do a little extra work. If I have a pen that has deeper scratches, I'll have to do a little bit more work to get those out. But the nice thing about the material that these pens are made out of, it's possible to buff out the scratches and the pens look almost brand new. I would describe my process as lightly buffing the exterior of the pen. I bring back the shine, but there may still be some minor scratches and imperfections. But the nice thing about the material that these pens are made out of is it really disguises those imperfections. In fact, I've got 2 J pens from my personal collection. These are the only Esterbooks, vintage Esterbooks, that I have set aside for myself so far. I've got the green one that was my original that I found in an antique store, and it looked pretty rough. But once I cleaned it up and did some light buffing on it, it just came back and looks perfect. That was my original. And another one that I've set aside for myself is this blue pen that I just love the shade of blue. Some of them are lighter than others, and some of them are darker. I like the shade of this blue, and I just, like the look of the material. But this one has, it looks like, been chewed up. The cap was possibly held in someone's mouth as they wrote, but I was able to knock off the harsh edges of that, and you can hardly feel it. Also, there's a deep little dent that I really have to look for. The pattern in the material really disguises it. So when I've shined it up, it's nice and smooth, and this was one of my favorites, so I set it aside for myself. So these have all been fully restored. They've got new sacks in them. I've done some light cleaning on them, or light shining up of the material. These are all restored except for these 2. They still have the old sack, so I just wanted to include this green one just to show the range of colors that these pens came in. But this one still has the old sack, and it's in remarkably good shape. They don't usually come to me this clean. The ends are a little bit, the finials are a little bit dull, or the jewels, these are called the jewels. But the material looks pretty shiny. But the nib is full of crusted ink, and the sack still needs to be removed. So I won't be bringing this one or the little black short pen. It also is in fairly nice condition, but I can tell that the sack is starting to turn hard. So I don't want to take a pen to the show that's not in good working condition. But the rest of these, I have taken the nibs out. I'll have the nibs separate so that you can pick out and test which nib you'd like to put in your new pen. If you get one of the used pens, that my little container of nibs that I have are just all the used nibs that came out of these pens. And they're all clean and ready to dip in some ink. Now, my intention was to go through and do writing samples and separately package each of the nibs so that you could see how each nib wrote before you picked it out, because some firm fines might write a little bit wetter or drier than another. These are writing samples that I did last year at the pen show with every one of the nibs, just to make sure they were all working properly and had good ink flow and were writing nice and smooth. So you can kind of look through my notes here, and see what size of nib you think you might prefer. Then you can pick one out and test write with it. Or if you don't see anything that you like in the used nibs, I've got some new old stock. These are separately packaged. They've never been used before. Each nib comes in its own little box. And I've got a box of fine. I've got another box of fine. The numbers on them designate like I don't know if you would call it the quality, but kind of the quality of the nib. Let me see. Maybe I can show you the difference between the 1555 was a firm fine intended for Greg's shorthand, so it writes pretty fine. And the 2556, I find it writes a little bit broader, and it kind of depends on the exact nib you have. But you'll be able to take a look at this and pick out which nib you want to try. I've got some fine stub nibs. Let me see what those look like. 2442. There's the fine stub. It writes kind of like a medium nib. And I have some broad stubs. And this is a newer box of nibs to me, and I don't have a writing sample for it. So if that's something you're interested in, you can test it out. This is all I will probably be bringing to the show. I had some others, like some transitional pens, but I only had like one or two that were ready to go. I would like to, when I do bring them to the show, have a nice selection of all the colors. Well, I think I've got one more video, because I've got a couple of ballpoint pens, and I found a few more kind of entry-level fountain pens that I'll go ahead and make a video of those and put that up in case you see something there you might like. So if you'd like to see, make sure you're able to see that video. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. And if you found videos like this and videos about pens and paper and ink in general, please give me a thumbs up.